have someone just accepting people from the lobby, so I don't have to do that. Okay, so good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for joining us today for the second quarterly STIC meeting of 2023. You're welcome to turn your cameras on and show your faces. Just mute yourself unless you're speaking. And we'll be monitoring the chat, so if you have any questions along the way, just feel free to put them in there. And to kick things off, I'm going to welcome our Assistant Commissioner, Mike Russo. Mike?
Hey, good afternoon, everybody. So, Brandy, I didn't realize the comment you just made is that you have not been to an in-person STIC meeting.
I have not.
Which that's kind of amazing. So our goal, I believe, right, and keep our fingers crossed, is for our next STIC meeting to be in person. I think that's what we're working on, and we'll have a few surprises to go along with that, I think, once we get that on course and once we get that scheduled. So I want to welcome everybody once again to this is our second quarter New Jersey STIC meeting. I'm going to skip the small talk. We have a full agenda and we will just jump right into the meat of the session. I want to hand it over to Chris Page, but I believe, Chris, this is also your first STIC at the helm, I believe. So, thank you for taking over this role. And we're looking forward to you kicking off these meetings for us right after my very brief introductions. So with that, I'm going to hand it over to Chris Page from Federal Highway.
Real quick, right. Mike, do you want to introduce?
What did I do? Okay.
Do you want to introduce Vandana real quick and the guest speakers and everything? Do you want to do that, or if not, that's okay.
So now I'm sorry. So I guess there's something to be said for reviewing the slides in advance. Want to welcome our guest speakers today. Today we're going to dive into sustainability. Very topical discussion. I had the pleasure recently of actually doing a presentation at the Sustainable Jersey Summit, which was an extension of this. So I think we have a lot of interesting material that we're going to cover. We have Kim Sharp, who will be, I believe, presenting. So we have several pieces to that Sustainable Initiative presentation. Bob Blight, Manzi Shah, and Kamal Patel will also be doing pieces of that presentation. So I hope you all find that very informative. And that will be later in our program, I believe, right after we do the CIA team updates, correct?
Yes.
And with that, we have, I believe, a new point person on the Mobility and Operations CIA team, and that is Vandana Mather. So welcome. Welcome aboard. And with that, I believe I'm handing this over. Correct, Brandy?
Thank you, Mike.
Sure. If you want, I could just quickly say something about Vandana. Thank you for stepping up on the Mobility and Operations CIA team. Welcome to the STIC. Vandana, this is her first meeting. She's worked in state government for about 19 years. She brings experience from a lot of different state departments. She has her master's degree in English literature and has a lot of experience working with federal and state funding. She's been recognized for her efforts in every department she's ever worked in, winning 3 awards, 2 with the Department of Corrections as Outstanding and Dedicated Support to the Mission in 2007 and Team Player of the Year in 2015. And just this year, she won the Exceptional Service Award from the Department of Children and Families. She also brings experience managing pilot and research projects with both the Department of Education and the Department of Corrections. She's participated in the development of a pilot program called Secure Manage, which was a web-based software that tracks the inmates at residential community release programs to obtain customized reports to ensure a smooth transition from the manual reporting system to an electronic system. She was involved with a lot of other projects, and I could go on, but I just want to say, join me in welcoming Vandana to the New Jersey STIC. And with that, we'll turn it over to Chris for Federal Highway updates. So welcome, Vandana.
Thank you, Brandy. Thank you.
All right. Thank you for that. Just out of respect for time, I will be brief, but I'm happy to be here. I'm happy to be my first STIC meeting. So I'll go ahead and jump right in. I just want to start off by thanking you everybody for coordinating, submitting your EDC 7 baseline reports. We are expecting that all 6 baseline reports should be finalized by our headquarters any day now. So information will be sent out regarding that in due time. I've read through all the goals, the innovation goals. I'm excited to see how they emerge throughout the life of EDC 7 over these next couple of years. One thing I did want to note that is different than this round at EDC is that the progress report schedule has changed. So if you have not been made aware of that, there will not be a 6-month progress report due this summer. The purpose of that was to allow for additional time. So the first progress report will be due 1 year after the baseline report. So we're talking spring of next year. Progress report number 2 will be due 6 months after that. So there will be a progress report next summer, however. The next point I wanted to bring up is I just wanted to thank everybody from Federal Highway and NJDOT who presented at the American Council of Engineering Companies ACEC Design Summit. There was an innovation presentation there that I thought was really well received, and I want to thank everybody who participated in it again, and we explained to the participants and attendees what the EDC initiatives were all about and how potentially their respective companies and organizations might be able to involve and immerse themselves in that, as well as the STIC network and what it is and what it contains. Like I said, it was well attended. There was a lot of good dialogue. So thank you again for everybody and their participation with that. And just lastly, I will say that I'm sure some of you know, but if you don't, Federal Highway does have periodic webinars. Some of them are open to the public regarding these EDC initiatives. So those will be sent out. If I see something, I'll make sure that we coordinate and get those sent out and make sure that you're all aware. So that was all I had, and I will yield my time.
Thanks, Chris. So next we're going to hear from our core innovation area leads, and I'll continue sharing my screen. So just tell me next if I haven't advanced the slide already, and we're going to start with the safety team. So first up, Dan Lasanti and Amy Kaminsky from the Safety CIA team.
Hello, everyone. How's everybody doing? Our first slide here, we have 2 initiatives under EDC 7. The first one is it's being conducted by our Bike Ped Resource Center, which is Rutgers Voorhees Transportation Center in participation with Rowan University. They're investigating best practices for street lighting with a focus on vulnerable roadway users. Currently, the research is focused on literature review scans identifying best practice in the relationship between lighting and safety of people walking, bicycling, and other vulnerable road users, and summarizing best practice in the design and placement of pedestrian scale lighting. Upcoming tasks include using the literature review to inform the creation of a guide for the locals that will include standards for appropriate light levels for a variety of street topographies in New Jersey, best practice in designs that reduce fatalities and serious injuries of pedestrians and bicyclists, pedestrian scale lighting.
Women's at 1:30.
Please mute yourself unless you're speaking. Just a reminder to everyone. Thank you.
Thanks. Pedestrian scale street light placement and designs that consider land use and light pollution concerns. Next slide, please.
Activity 2, NJDOT, through a task order contract, is developing traffic signal pole and mast arm details based on the 2015 AASHTO requirements for signalized intersection installations, including back plates with retroreflective tape on traffic signal indications. Once those new details are completed, the NJDOT will require all new installations to include back plates and retroreflective tape on all signal indications. The preliminary submission for the task order to develop the new signal standards will be made in August. At this time, the Bureau of Traffic Engineering has been installing back plates on signal pole heads installed on steel mast arms whenever possible. I think that ends our update for the safety group.
Okay, thank you, Dan and Amy. Next up, we have Shivani Patel and Nunzio Merla from our Infrastructure Preservation Team.
Good afternoon. My name is Shivani Patel, and I'll be providing the update for the Infrastructure Preservation Initiatives. So there are 2 initiatives. First is EPIC. Internally curing concrete has many benefits. To provide a little background, this practice involves providing water to the cementitious matrix after setting. With Conventional curing, water is supplied on the concrete surface. Internal curing provides a source of moisture from inside the concrete's mixture with pre-wetted lightweight aggregates which distribute the curing water throughout the concrete body. This material level technology can be employed in any concrete mixture with proper adjustment to mixture design proportions. Internal curing increasing concrete's resistance by targeting the source of shrinkage cracking. It improves the structural longevity of infrastructure, which may last more than 75 years. Although there is an approximately 20% material cost increase for the concrete, total life cycle cost savings and extension of service is considered a payoff, as there is reduced need for the rehabilitation or replacement of critical elements. Finally, internally cured concrete mixtures can be designed using natural waste or alternative recycled cementitious products, reducing the carbon impact. Since March, the EPIC SME team has been established and includes NJDOT staff from programmatic areas, including the Bureaus of Structural Engineering and Construction and Materials. The baseline report was submitted in April to FHWA. Since then, the team has been actively working towards completing some implementation plan activities, which include identifying and evaluating potential test bridge projects, gathering a list of approved suppliers who could and would be willing to complete this type of work, and reaching out to New York State DOT to understand the material level technology and lessons learned from the state's experience. Next slide, please. The second initiative is EPDs, or Environmental Product Declarations. An EPD is a verified report that documents the environmental impacts of a material or product. They provide the consideration of sustainable measures for an entire construction project and the results of a life cycle assessment. The comprehensive report can be used to support decision-making throughout the project delivery process. Most commonly, EPDs were used by vertical construction industry and material manufacturers, but many transportation agencies are beginning to require EPDs during project procurement to guide procurement decisions and essentially quantify embodied carbon reductions using life cycle assessments for sustainable pavements. EPDs encourage the demand and supply of products that promote the more sustainable use of resources and create less harm on the environment. There has been a delayed start for this innovation. The EPD innovation was initially housed in the Planning and Environment CIA team, but was later deemed to be a better fit for the infrastructure preservation area. We recently took on this initiative and are working on catching up. The baseline report was completed and submitted to FHWA in April, and currently we are in the process of developing a team of subject matter experts from various programmatic areas, including geotechnical engineering, environmental, pavement, and construction materials. Once the team is assembled, a meeting will be held to discuss responsibilities and next steps towards accomplishing implementation plan activities, which will begin with the education of DOT staff through activities such as classes, webinars, and peer exchange forums.
Okay, thank you, Shivani. Next up, we have Chris Page, and I think we have Kelly Hutchinson on behalf of Crystal Walker from our Organizational Support and Improvement CIA team. So take it away. Oh, Crystal is here. Hi, Crystal.
I am here. Hi.
Okay.
Hi,
right.
everyone. My name is Crystal Walker. I am representing the workforce development. So I just wanted to just initially go over the initiative currently. So for our current initiative, is demand for highway workers is growing, and the emerging technologies require new skills. So this innovation helps stakeholders approve their ability to identify, train, and place highway construction workers. So the focus will expand on rural and tribal communities to increase career opportunities. So next slide, please. So these are our current implementation plans that was submitted within the baseline report. So we're currently still in the developmental stage, but I also wanted to just provide you with an even more detailed update. So we've currently begun engaging with the contractor community to help develop outreach and training activities to increase opportunities for women, minorities, and other disadvantaged individuals participation in the construction workforce. So since NJDOT's construction projects are generally staffed by union workers, we plan to begin bringing the unions to the table for their input and support. In the meantime, NJDOT has developed a proposal to request state and federal funding that will support the development and implementation of a comprehensive workforce development program. This program will have a two-pronged approach and will shape and influence the department's internal and external workforces and address the unrepresented and underutilized women, minorities, and other disadvantaged individuals in the skilled trades. The internal piece creates and facilitates opportunities of on-the-job trainings for individuals desiring work with NJDOT and other highway construction contractors. The external piece includes a viable, fully supported pre-apprenticeship training program targeted to prepare underutilized and disadvantaged individuals for skilled and semi-skilled trades used in our heavy highway construction workforce. So the steps that will be taken will be a pre-apprentice pathways to make them more accessible across all phases of the programs to ensure that journey level workers who complete the programs continue their success with employment. We will hire a consultant to develop and design a virtual information center, which is via website, which will include resources, information, guidance, videos, and other related materials aimed at individuals interested in working within the highway construction trades with NJDOT and other construction contractors. And that is our current update for this meeting.
Okay, thank you, Crystal. And before we move on, I saw a question in the chat. Is EDC cycle 7 for 2 or 3 years? Yeah, the cycle is 2 years. So EDC 7 is from 2023 to 2024. Thank you for the question. And any other questions come up, anyone could put them in the chat and we'll keep an eye on that. So next up, I'm going to bring up Vandana Mathur and Aik Ponsavath from Mobility and Operations CIA team.
Thanks, Brandy. I will provide an update for our team. The next gen team is a carryover from EDC 6, continue to build upon the success of the initiative. Technology will focus on using LED road flares and emergency vehicle lighting to support incident clearance and provide more visibility to the responders and drivers. Another focus area is deploying an advanced warning system for truck drivers, providing advanced notification to the truck in-cab or mobile devices for their situational awareness and reducing secondary crashes. I apologize, we lost the slide. And also at the same time, got it, Brandy?
Yeah, sorry, just 1 second. Let me just reshare. Just bear with me 1 second. Talk amongst yourselves. Sorry.
I thought it was me.
Hey, Brandy, I had a quick comment. So we have I think what Ake's talking about is the DriveWise platform that we had contracted through the University of Maryland. Just as a quick note, following the fire and collapse of I-95 over in Philadelphia on Monday, we had a conversation with the folks at DriveWise. They have since put in geolocated alerts along sections of roadway in New Jersey on roadways leading to Pennsylvania, but also on state borders from Massachusetts down to Maryland for the I-95 closure at our request. So this kind of just goes to show that you don't always have to think within your own borders.
Thank you, Sal. Okay, let me just skip forward. Okay. Thank you, Aik, as you were. Continue.
Thank you, Brandy. We also wanted to provide some clarification, we originally assess ourselves as being institutionalized in practice. And upon further discussion among the team, we thought it would be better to take a step back and put us in the assessment stage, part of that continuous improvement, continue to assess the technology, identify some best practice and lesson learned, and also incorporate some strategic activities into the NJDOT ITS and traffic ops work program. A QR code survey was also developed based on the EDC implementation plan form. And the next subsequent step is to review feedback from the local agency and emergency responder to better understand their needs, challenges, if any, and better help inform the NJDOT with some of the development of implementation plan activity. We also have an abundance of trucks in the left lanes of roadways that can cause traffic to move slowly. There is a plan in place for the NJDOT to deploy a no truck in left lane alerts for truck drivers. Information will be sent to the in-cab or mobile device utilizing the DriveWise system for roadways that have more than 2 lanes, and a way to remind the truck drivers of the state vehicle code of no trucks in the left lane for corridors that have those signs in place. And currently in the planning stage, and NJDOT will work with the vendor DriveWise to develop that notification alert that will be sent to the truck drivers. And this concludes our update for the team.
Okay, thank you, Ake. Now, last we have Sudhir on behalf of Andy Swords and Sutapa with updates from our newest CIA team, Planning and Environment. So I'll pass it over to you, Sudhir.
Okay. Brandy, can I share my screen? That would be easier because I have my notes to speak from.
Okay. Sure. Yeah.
All right. Let me share my screen first. All right. Can you see my screen?
Yes.
Oh, it should come up. All right. So on behalf of Andy Swords, I welcome everyone here. And I am presenting this regarding the core innovation area update for planning and environment. All right. So these are the topics that I would like to cover. Update on EDC 7 baseline report, which covers baseline questions, innovation implementation team members, state innovation goal, obstacles, implementation plan activities, and update on carbon reduction program, which is very important for the department. So we'll give some background, our approach to strategies that we develop, and sample project types, milestones, and current status. So there were some baseline questions that, on April 23rd baseline, what stage of implementation is the state currently at? We are at the development stage. Current state of practice to support the development stage. So we are analyzing air quality benefits of the projects and programs through our CMAC program and leverage this experience during the demonstration stage in developing the capability of the and to analyze the GHG, which is greenhouse gas reductions benefits. And NJDOT and its partners will benefit from the work on the carbon reduction program or strategies. And the next one is, what is the state goal in next 2 years? Our goal is the demonstration stage. So the proposed activities the state and our partners intends to perform to attain the goal development of the carbon reduction strategies. And we intend to support the eligible projects and programs while also considering cost effectiveness in this strategy, provide analytical support to the National Electric Vehicle Infrastructure Program, NEVI. And most likely our planning side, we're going to provide the planning support to them. And consider the use of drone technology for bridge inspection and traffic congestion analysis. Our transportation partners wants to have a better idea of the scale of carbon reduction benefits and use this information in modeling and decision making. The second goal is to reduce VMT and involve the vehicle performance through electrification and sustainable energy. And the third is the consider greenhouse gas reduction policy holistically, including planning, target setting, and funding to educate, deliver programs, and assess the outcomes, as well as funding to prioritize the programs. So the other question is, can the innovation deployment team provide assistance to help the state and their partners reach their goal within 2 years? So how we can achieve? By training, technical support on specific projects and issues, workshops or peer exchanges, and case studies. The next is innovation implementation team members. Who are the team members? For NJDOT, Andy Schwartz is the lead, and Sushant Darji from our unit. And Brandy's name is not here, but I believe Brandy is also one of the lead team member here. And from Federal Highway side, Sutapa and I believe Chris Page. So this presentation, Sushant, we need to revise and before we send it out. The state innovation goal, the benefit goal. So currently transportation accounts for about 42% of the greenhouse gas emissions in the state and 29% of the greenhouse gas emissions nationally. The obstacles are difficulty generalizing the effects of the projects to the entire transportation sector and needs to develop a process for understanding greenhouse gas impacts of the construction. And the implementation plan activities, the deployment of carbon reduction strategies and NEVI program support. So next, the background. As you know, the background, the bipartisan infrastructure law established the CRP and provided funds for the projects designed to reduce this carbon reduction, transportation emissions, as carbon dioxide, CO2 emissions from on-road highway sources. And other emissions also be converted into equivalent of carbon dioxide, CO2e, they call. And funds appropriated to each state, eligible project types, coordination and consultation, and completion of the CRP strategies are by November 15, 2023. So that's our deadline we are focusing on. The purpose is to identify projects and strategies that will contribute to helping New Jersey reduce its transportation-related emissions and serve as a basis for the state's decision-making on the use of CRP funds. The consultation with the other agencies. So we conducted a survey involving multiple agencies to determine the types of projects being pursued by the state, established a strategy that considers present plans without excluding the future plans, and develop a strategy that may serve as a resource for the other agencies. So what are the project types? So replace medium duty trucks, replace diesel off-road equipments, new active transportation facility, expand transit bus services, signal synchronizations along corridor. Our task partners would be very helpful in that strategies. Construction methods, replace lighting with LEDs, install public EV charging stations. We are working towards NEVI plan. Replace diesel buses. We have diesel retrofit program that we are working to progress further, and new van pool services, expanded light rail services, project to relieve highway congestion, innovative technologies, and replace heavy-duty trucks. So, project example for sustainable construction materials like glass foam aggregate. This has been discussed in many presentations and many times before. But what it does, it provides 50% less CO2 than other lightweight aggregates. One truck of a foam glass aggregate equals 7 trucks of regular backfill trucks off the road. So it's a big reduction in carbon emissions. And NJDOT construction has used about 35,000 cubic yard of foam glass aggregates, which equals to 30 million bottles not placed in the landfills. It's a great achievement, I believe. And NJDOT has a project in design soon to go into construction that will use about 50 million bottles. So these are the milestones. Very good slide, Sushant, you came up with. So on December 9, 2022, we convened as a working group, and we ongoing process in 2023, we reviewed the existing plans. And if you look at going through all these stages, we developed the strategies by mid-June 2023, which we are in process, and then draft carbon reduction strategies by July 2023, which is next month. And in September, we address the working group comments or draft to carbon reduction strategies and develop the final strategies. Then we got the approval in October and submit on November 15. Currently, we are establishing these strategies by soliciting feedback from all the other agencies and analyzing the approaches developed by these other states to develop strategies for their states. So we're taking benefit from knowledge from other states. And thank you very much for your participation. We appreciate your attention. Thank you. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you,
Any
Sudhir.
questions?
Yeah, if anyone has questions, you could put them in the chat or you can raise your hand. That's fine. But while you stop sharing your screen, so I'll take over. Thank you so much, Sushant, for that timeline. That was really neat to see that.
Yes.
And I'm glad that you mentioned the foam glass aggregate because that's going to be our one of our first speakers coming right up. But for now, I see a hand up in the audience, and that's Sal.
Yes, Sal.
Hey, Sudhir, how are you?
Yes, good. How are you?
I'm doing well, thank you. So I recognize you mentioned the NEVI plan in your presentation.
Mm-hmm.
So it's timely. The department had its strategic traffic incident management program meeting today, and DVRPC had a presentation on an electric vehicle response working group. I sent a note to Mike and Parth and a couple of other folks from leadership regarding the need for collaboration on response. I'm sure many of the people have seen or heard the stories of vehicles that are electric vehicle in nature that have extended burn times and extended material use. The offer was to coordinate with the 3 MPOs to maybe talk about that. I'm just kind of tagging that on this because, you mentioned the NEVI plan. The response to vehicle fires is a considerable concern to the community who go to these jobs, particularly the towing industry who wind up bringing these vehicles back to their shops only for them to re-fire up once, minutes, hours later, it catches fire again unsuspectedly. So maybe someone in your group, considering you have the MPO platform, maybe we can have that conversation.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's a great point, and we always have MPOs partnering with our all activities. So this would be a great startup, for these activities. NEVI plan.
Great. Thank you, Sudhir.
You're welcome.
Okay, I'm going to reshare my screen and then we're going to jump right into the first part of our feature presentation on NJDOT Sustainability Initiatives. And first up, we have Kim Sharp, Again, if you have any questions, you could put them in the chat and we'll monitor that as we go along. And Kim is from our Bureau of Geotechnical Engineering. So take it away, Kim.
Well, good afternoon. I know some of you may have heard some of this presentation. I had a few other slides in here for sustainability. Anyways, so what I'm talking about, it's a product, it's called foam glass aggregate, which we call, we represent by the acronym FGA. It is made from 100% recycled container glass. So what makes the foam glass aggregate innovative? Well, it's cost-effective engineering solution and it's environmentally friendly. So we reduce the amount of waste that goes in our landfill because we repurpose this glass into a nice, innovative engineering material. It also alleviates the burden on waste management infrastructure, and it promotes a more sustainable approach to handling waste. So because it's less energy to make, it generates fewer carbon emissions compared to other materials like our regular aggregates that we use also in construction. So just some benefits of the foam glass aggregate. It is very, very lightweight compared to like quarry aggregates that we also use on our construction site. It's about 85 to 90% lighter. We also have some different types of lightweight aggregates that we do use out in construction. And this foam glass is 50 to 60% lighter than those aggregates. It has really good engineering properties. It's very highly frictional, so we can build it up on, steep angles and it will hold that slope. It's great for insulating properties, which we don't necessarily need in transportation, but it's great, if you're using it as fill for like building construction. Environmentally, it doesn't leach, it doesn't rot, it's not flammable, and it's a very durable material. And as I said, it is manufactured from 100% recycled glass. So here we have just some pictures that we got when we were at the plant. The top right is a picture of the glass that is brought to the plant before it's washed from the different recycling centers. Right now, the plant that we went to is on the other side of the Philly airport. They get the recycled glass in Philly, and also they get it from a recycling plant in New Jersey, just on the other side of Camden. So anyways, the glass is brought, it's crushed, and it is brought to the plant, and it goes through a wash cycle, so it looks nice and pretty like it does in the bottom right photograph. And then that glass is put into through the plant, and it's crushed into a powder, which you can go to the next slide. So once it's made into the powder goes into this big hopper, and they had this magic little foaming powder that it mixes up, and it creates and they heat it up and they put it through a kiln, so it heats the material up, so it looks like this. It's coming out of the kiln, as you can see here, out flat. And so when it comes through, it's very hot and steamy, and as it works its way down the conveyor belt, it starts to soften. The bubbles that are in there, as it cools, they will start to crack, and that's how we end up with the foam glass aggregate. And then on the next slide, you'll see at the end of the conveyor belt, once it's cooled, it'll drop down into another conveyor belt. There's pieces of it that are in front of the screen, and then the rest of it is on a conveyor belt, and it goes outside into a big pile. I know you guys can't see me too well, but these are like pieces of the foam glass. It's very, very light. They can be, they're just variable sizes. But it's, it's just, it looks like an aggregate. And so this is the process of how it makes, and there's hardly any people or machinery that goes into the process of making this. It's a very, very simple technique. And then, so we were talking about how do we use it in transportation? Well, in areas where we've used it and we're going to use it, like in Atlantic City, where some of our roads are up in Kearney, where some of our roads are rated like level with the ground zero, you know, where the water level is. And we have tidal effects or heavy rains, and our state highways will start to flood over. So then we say, okay, you know what? We want to raise them up 2 or 3 feet so our roads aren't getting shut down when we have a full moon or high tide or heavy rainstorms. But we may have some soft compressible soils that are right underneath the pavement. So what we can do is we can excavate out some of this heavy regular material. We can replace it with this lightweight foam glass aggregate. It is wrapped when it's installed. I do have some pictures I'll show you. And then we have to cap it with heavier material because it is lightweight. It'll become buoyant in water. So we want to make sure that we have enough weight on top of it. And then our pavement people, I can't remember, it's 8 or 9 inches of soil above that before they put their pavement box on top. And then the next, if you click, Brandy, there you go. You can actually click and put all 4 of them up. Another application is on the top right is behind our retaining walls. It'll lighten the lateral forces on the walls. And then down below, you can put it around your utilities just to lighten the loads. You know, sometimes we get into the old cities and we're excavating and we have some old terracotta pipes that were built in the early 1900s, you know, and so if you're going to be building around them, this is a good product too. It'll lessen the loads and the pressure on these utilities. And the same thing if you're doing any tunnels or culverts and you want to reduce the loads. Those are some other applications which we haven't used yet, but we certainly can in transportation. And then here we're just showing you, which is where we put most of our lightweight aggregate, was up on the Route 7 Whit Pen project. You can see the black liner, which is laying down on the ground. That's to separate the existing soil from the foam glass aggregate. Then the foam glass aggregate is dumped into, yes, you jumped a little quick, but anyway, so the truck in the background, because I don't have my pointer, but the truck in the background is how the lightweight, nope. You can go to that one, okay. So the truck in the background, that's what the lightweight aggregate comes in. And it's got a lift on it, it'll dump it out, and then the backhoe will spread it out. You can see the black liner. And the material spread out, and we don't compact it like regular soil. There is a small compaction that you have to do if you do it if you have a track mounted machine such as that, you have to put it down in 2-foot layers, and you have to do like 4 passes on it. If it's you don't have a track mounted machine like that, you have to do it in 1-foot lifts, and you have to do hand taps of like 4 passes. But anyway, so the material comes, it's wrapped up, completely surrounded, so they don't have infiltration of the soils around it getting inside of it. You can go to the next slide. And here we were up on Route 80. What we did is we had a new superstructure constructed. So we had the existing abutment. We wanted to reduce the lateral forces on the back walls of those abutments. Some of our older abutments don't meet the certain loads, but if we can reduce the loads acting on them, then we can keep them. We don't have to build, demolish them and build new. So that's exactly what we did here on the approaches. We removed the existing soil and the approach slab, and we laid down like I said, the geofabric material and the foam glass aggregate to lighten the load on the approach. And on the next slide, this is back out on Fish House Road in Kearney. We had to do some staging and we had to switch some roads around. So you can see in the front down where it says house, you can see a wire. And what that is, that's a temporary wire wall, which we were building so that it would support a temporary roadway. And you see the heavy duty black liner that was placed, and then the foam glass aggregate on top, and you can see the machinery. He's spreading it. He's doing his 4 passes just to kind of compact it. But this was absolutely great because the soil that we have out in and around Fish House Road is highly, highly compressible. So this was a very good product for us. And go to the next slide. So this is just explaining how many millions of bottles we have already, New Jersey DOT has saved from going into the landfill. So on the Route 7 Whit Pen project, we saved 27.6 million bottles from going in the landfill. The Route 80 over Rockaway, which I showed you where we use it on the back walls and the approaches to the existing bridge, we saved, that was cute, the little applaud, Sal, 1.9 million bottles. Route 1 and 9, New Road Contract 1, we didn't use too much there, but we did find an application where we had an issue and we had to look out for lateral forces. So we said, hey, let's use the foam glass aggregate. So that was still, I mean, it's substantial. It was 0.8 million bottles. Route 322 Mullica Hill, in-house, we built a new wall to support an existing dilapidated wall, which was raised up above the homes in the river. And as a backfill between the two walls, we put in the foam glass aggregate, and that saved us about 21,000 bottles. But, you know, we were all into using this, so we're like, hey, we're going to use it, you know, even if it's a smaller amount. And then the next slide, I think is talking about some future ones. And like I said, down in Atlantic City, I know we have talked about it, where they want to raise Route 40 and 322 to get it up above the current high tide levels, so we're not flooding as much. And if they do, we calculated how much the cubic yards of normal soil they would need, and that equates to about 30 million bottles that we will save. Route 47 widening, same thing over compressible soil, so it helps to lighten that load for that widening of the road, 7 million. And then 29 Cass Street, we haven't gotten to the, I mean, we're in construction. The lightweight aggregate will be used behind the new flood wall, which has not been built yet. That's 5.5 million bottles. And then Fish House Road, Kearney, which is just getting advertised. That's another project that we're using it, and that'll be about 11 million bottles we'll save from going in the landfill. And then the next slide, just about resiliency. So for the product emissions and the energy, it uses about 50% less carbon dioxide than creating our other lightweight aggregates in the factory. And as I showed you for transportation, because it's so lightweight, that large, long bed truck that I showed you that the foam glass aggregate is in, because it's so light, one of those trucks would be equivalent to 7 regular dump trucks, construction dump trucks. So we're keeping a lot of the bigger dump trucks off the road by replacing it with this lightweight material, which we can, send one truck to the job site. Plus, again, we are using our local recycling plants, and we're using local manufactured materials, your wine bottles, your beer bottles, your soda bottles, any of your glass bottles that you recycle. We're keeping them, we're using those. So anyways, so material reduction, as we said, that because the material is so light, then we can build smaller walls, which means we don't have to use as much concrete. We don't have to use as much reinforcing steel, because we can build thinner walls and, instead of large, thick walls with big footprint footings, for overturning. So because of that, overall, it creates less emissions. And then, well, anyways, we've been thinking in our office, there's different areas that we were thinking about with flood mitigation for underground reservoirs, maybe using the material. I know we don't build too many noise walls anymore, but I know years ago when we were building noise walls like crazy, we were looking at all different types of materials to put in there. We used shredded tires, and we used just different things, but we thought, that's another thing we can think about now is if we do start building more noise walls, which occasionally we do, maybe we can put the foam glass aggregate inside the panels. And then again, we're always looking at ideas with our rehabs for our abutments and our retaining walls. If we can find applications for the walls, of using the foam glass. Okay, you can go to the next slide. And that was just Mohab and I, we were our contact information. And I just wanted to let you guys know, and it's also the same company that does the foam glass. No, I'm sorry, it's not the same company. There's another company. They're using plastic, our plastic bags, and they're making pellets and they're putting it into concrete. And we're trying to look for some ideas where we can start using the plastic in our concrete as well. But I'll keep you guys posted on that one.
Thank you so much, Kim. There were some interesting comments, I guess, in the chat. So I just wanted to, for anyone who's not looking at them, Jason Simmons had asked where all of the used glass is coming from, and I think moments after he asked that, you answered the question. So you know, I think you had mentioned where all of that was coming from. So thank you for that. And then Bill McGarrigle had mentioned that the Pennsylvania governor just stated this morning that they're going to be using this material as the interim solution to address the I-95 bridge collapse. So, you know, we were just talking about that, and here you go, another amazing positive thing.
Well, I will tell you, the foam glass aggregate was used when not we, but when Pennsylvania, when PennDOT rebuilt a lot of the highways down on 295, the foam glass aggregate. I have a lot of pictures from that construction. It was used, I don't know, 6 years ago when they were building that original bridge that just, you know, unfortunately caught fire. But yeah, that's great. Because I know they did use that during the initial construction, maybe not of that particular bridge, but of some of the slopes and approaches down there on 95.
Okay, wonderful. And then the only possible negative is we might be supporting Amy's drinking problem, but as long as she's recycling the bottle she's drinking, you know, we're good. So
hey, we didn't say what I was drinking. I just said I was drinking.
Oh, her soda.
Well, you know,
soda.
I had told
soda water.
That's right. It could be soda water, right? I was telling the company because they did hook up out in California with a winery, and they're getting their wine bottles, and they were doing in Central Florida, and they were looking for a recycling place. And I said, my God, you got the villages in Central Florida. You got all those retired people. They're all beer drinkers and wine drinkers, and God only knows what other alcohol, you know, vodka, gin. I said, you could set up and they don't recycle right now. And I said, get them to recycle, you know, it would help. But that's for down floor, but we were joking about it. But yeah, so I mean, we started using it because it's so lightweight and it's a good product for construction. But then, you know, as the few years went by, we're like, hey, you know, everybody will like it because of its resiliency and it's energy efficient and it's reducing the carbon footprint.
Absolutely. And Sudhir, you have a question?
Yeah, I just want to ask him that this foam glass aggregate, do we have any comparison with the properties with the regular aggregates, and how do they compare?
Well, one's glass and one's rock.
Right.
Well, it's not rock. Okay, so I don't know what you want for strength. I mean, soil has like it depends on what type of soil you're using, but I'm just saying that it's lighter, but it doesn't compress. I mean, I don't know that I would put it under a railroad track or anything like that, but it certainly will hold up to the highway. And I can tell you what we did as a demonstration. We had the company come in. The contractor had to set up a crossover lane because we were shutting down part of Fish House Road. So what we did, it was it's about 200 feet long, and it was a roadway that we built, and we had the contractor use it for about I don't know, if it's about a month and a half, and he just had heavy equipment on it. We had all sorts of survey monitoring points on top of it, on the slopes of it, to see, you know, to make sure it didn't spread out, to make sure it didn't tilt, it didn't settle, and it didn't budge one single little tiny bit. So it was just before Thanksgiving. They wanted to open it up, you know, to start the new staging and the crossover. So we gave them the go ahead, and the contractor liked it so much that all the lightweight, the geofoam and all the lightweight aggregate that was proposed on the project, he eliminated it and made it all the foam glass aggregate, and they loved it. And the contractors talk, and the next thing you know, we got another contractor using it and another contractor using it, and people from different state DOTs, because we were kind of the first ones to start using it and promoting it. I've had other state DOTs over the last 4 years asking us, how do you use it? What's, how is it working for you? So by word of mouth, it's also spreading.
Well, that's
So,
good to know. Yeah.
yeah,
Thank you.
you're welcome.
Okay, Kim, thank you so much. And if any other questions come up, you can put them in the chat if you think of something, and we can bring them up later on. But for now, I'm going to move on to the next presentation. And that is Robert Blight's going to come up from our Bureau of Pavement and Drainage Management and Technology. So Robert, take it away.
Sure. Hi, everyone. Good afternoon. I'm Robert Blight with New Jersey DOT Pavement and Drainage Management Technology. So I'll touch on some sustainability in pavements. I was initially asked to talk about rubberized pavements, but I figured I'd throw in a few other innovations that we've done in the past or we're working on. So next slide, please. So just some quick acknowledgements. We do a lot of work with Tom Bennett up at Rutgers. He's been an advocate for a lot of different innovations that we've used in pavements. Prashant Ram from Applied Pavement Technology and Greg Duncan from Applied Pavement Technology. They all allowed me to use a few of their slides from other presentations. So just want to acknowledge them. Next slide, please. So quick overview. I'm going to just briefly touch on sustainability in pavements, talk about rubber pavements and scrap rubber tires, recycled or reclaimed asphalt pavement wrap, recycled plastic waste, and then a quick summary. Next slide, please. So sustainability, it really is founded on, for pavements, 3 pillars: social, economic, and environmental. Next slide, please. Just sustainability defined, we want to achieve the engineering goals. We want to preserve and restore surrounding ecosystems. We want to use all our financial, human, and environmental resources wisely. And at the same time, meet basic human needs: health, safety, equity, employment, comfort, and happiness. Next slide, please. So this is the life cycle stages for pavements. Most pavement materials are 100% recyclable. And we are recycling large amounts of our pavements back into new pavements and other applications. But quickly the stages: materials, design, construction, use, maintenance and preservation, and the end of life. Next slides, please. So the benefits: we want to reduce pavement life cycle costs, greenhouse emissions, reduce energy consumption and noise, improve safety, ride quality, and conserve our natural resources as best we can. Next slide, Brandy. So first one, recycled scrap tires. We've had some experience with this over the years, but as you know, it's a big waste product. It is an engineered product, so it has value. These tires, if they're made in the US, which, is a requirement of use for our applications, it has to be manufactured in the US, but it has very good qualities, polymers that help increase viscosity of our asphalt binders. They can increase the film thickness on the aggregates, which in turn leads to better durability, crack resistance, and in fact, rut resistance in pavements. The polymers modify the asphalt when used in a particular process called the wet process, and improve it on the high temperature end of the spectrum and the low temperature end of the spectrum. Next slide, please. So what we're trying to achieve, we want to reduce the amount of tires that are going to landfill and reduce landfill, prevent pollution. Apparently, when these tires go into a landfill and water hits them, they bubble. That water then damages the liner in the landfill, and that leachate from the landfill can seep into the groundwater. So other Pollution that we're trying to prevent, tire fires. If anyone has ever seen a tire fire, they're nasty and they're difficult to put out. We had a structure on Route 80 years ago that was damaged due to a tire fire that we had to replace in an emergency situation. And methane gas. Methane gas is part of that air pollution issue. Some of the other things we're trying to prevent is disease from pests, mosquitoes, rodents, these types of landfill or debris. They attract this type of pests that can spread disease. Next slide, please. So as I said, the process that is the most utilized across the country, that we've seen the most value from, is the wet process, which is a ground tire rubber material that's ground at a tire recycling plant and then is incorporated back into the asphalt according to this ASTM specification D6114. This asphalt rubber binder is then used in a few different products, which I'll go over 3 of them, but it's also used in other applications as well for pavements. One of the ones that we use it for is asphalt rubber open graded friction course, asphalt rubber gap graded courses, asphalt rubber chip seal. What we found is that we can recycle up to 1,000 tires per lane mile when used in some of these applications. Next slide, please. So this is what the product looks like. This is actually my hand at one of the plants where we were using this product on a project. But it's a 30 mesh, which if anyone's familiar with aggregate sieves, the material is about a 30 mesh size sieve size. So it's like a beach sand. It's ground into that product. The steel is separated from it and the fibers at the recycling plant. And then it's loaded into super sacks like the picture you see on the right. And the super sacks are delivered to the asphalt plant for incorporation into the asphalt. Next slide, please. So as you can see, the loader picking up one of these super sacks on the left. On the right, it is dumping it into a blending unit, which then blends that sand size ground rubber tire particle in with the asphalt. That blending occurs, and then it's allowed to react in a reaction tank for a specified amount of time, and then it's tested to ensure that you have the right quality. It's tested for viscosity, actually rotational viscosity. Based on the temperature and rotational viscosity, the person at the plant can determine if the quality is sufficient for that asphalt rubber binder. Once it's determined sufficient, it is added into the HMA production or the asphalt production at the plant, mixed with the aggregate, and then tested again for other properties for the mix, and then once approved, shipped out to the projects. Next slide, please. So this is just one of many projects that we've done over the years. This was a project right here north of our location in Trenton on I-95 in between, I believe it's between Scotch Road and Route 1, where we had a section of asphalt rubber open graded friction course constructed in around 2007. It performed for a number of years before we covered it with a preservation treatment. But what we found in a lot of these projects is maintenance had issues with winter maintenance on open graded pavements in general. So we paused use of this type of material all over a lot of our highways. However, it still has applications in other areas, such as maybe shoulders or parking rides, things of that nature. So it may be something that we still have in our standard specifications and we may use in the future. But it was a very good performer, as you can see from the test results up at Rutgers Kate. The crack resistance on the far right is the column for crack resistance, and this is tested in what we call Texas overlay tester, and it's compared to all our other materials, and it far exceeded the crack resistance of most of the materials that we use. So it was a very durable product. anyway, we may get back to using more of it in the future. Next slide, please. Another product we use, the same asphalt rubber binder goes into a few different products, as I mentioned. Another product that we developed, or specification we developed, is an asphalt rubber gap graded mixture, which isn't like the open graded where it has more of an open texture. The voids are around 14 to 20%. This particular product, the voids are more like a standard asphalt material, so we don't have the winter maintenance issues with it. So we've done one pilot project back in 2014, and we may get back to using more of this in the future. But this particular project was a resurfacing with operations over an old beat up concrete that was constructed in the early 1930s, and you can see from the top left picture that surface of the concrete was really beat up when they milled off the existing overlay. What we did is we put 2 layers of asphalt rubber gap graded mixture, one an intermediate course that allowed for the asphalt rubber and 10% wrap, and then we topped it with 1.5 inches of asphalt gap graded surface course, which did not include wrap but included the recycled rubber tires in it. And the contractor was really concerned because he had to meet a strict IRI spec on this project, which is smoothness. And if you look at the top left picture with the concrete, you can understand his concerns because he was paving over a really beat up concrete. So we were lenient with the specification on the IRI. However, after all was said and done, he improved the smoothness of the pavement by 67%, which was tremendous. He would have passed with a bonus, but he opted not to take that risk. So I think everyone walked away happy with the project, and it is still performing to this day. It's in good condition. We just put a thin preservation treatment over top of it. Next slide, please.
Before we go to the next slide, I think
Oh, yeah.
Nunzio had raised his hand, so maybe he has a question about this in particular. Nunzio?
Okay.
Maybe his hand was raised in error. Oh, yeah,
Okay.
it was. Okay, sorry. I'm
So
gonna.
sorry about that mistake.
That's okay.
That's okay. That's okay. Another product that we use the asphalt rubber binder in, an asphalt rubber chip seal. We constructed a project on Route 68 in Burlington County in 2018. Generally, it was successful as far as the asphalt rubber chip seal goes, and we had to do some tweaking of it. We found that the chip size that we used in the original spec was probably a little too coarse for New Jersey. And we had some chips come up and break some windshields, but went back to the drawing board and made some adjustments to the aggregate size. That product may be used in the future. Right now, we're using a finer asphalt chip seal product with a polymerized binder, and we may end up using an asphalt rubber binder in the future. But generally, this was successful. It just needed some tweaking, and this product is still on Route 68. It was covered due to the coarse chips with a slurry seal. But again, another product that asphalt rubber chip seal is used in, or asphalt rubber is used in. Asphalt rubber chip seal itself is used very, very frequently up in Rhode Island. They cover a lot of their highways with it as a preventive maintenance treatment, and they've found great success with it. Next slide, please. A little bit about recycling or reclaimed wrap. Next slide. So what is reclaimed asphalt pavement? Again, it's what we get after we mill up a section of roadway for resurfacing, or we remove the asphalt entirely and ship it back to the plant. We have a pile or piles of wrap. This particular material is engineered. It was engineered for our roadways. It's just being ground up and sent back to the asphalt plant. So it's an engineered waste product. It has value. Our goals are to reduce virgin material use, again, reduce energy consumption and emissions. If it's done correctly, it is economically sustainable. It's environmentally sustainable. However, there has to be a focus on long-term performance. We can't compromise performance just to say we recycled the material back into our roads. So I stress that because There is a push to use more wrap, but it's got to be done the proper way. Next slide, please. Some of the issues we see or barriers, stockpile management. As you can see, the picture on the right shows a mountain of wrap and all different sizes. You see big chunks, you see little pieces. This is sometimes what you see at a plant. This material cannot go right back into our new asphalt mixtures. This has to be processed, it has to be sized, it has to be tested for quality. It has to meet a certain standard so we can engineer the product that we're going to put back down on the roadway to get the performance that we're intending and to get the design life that we're intending to get. So other barriers, as I said, long-term performance. There's some binder issues with certain quality wrap and the type of binder that you have to use to be compatible with it. In other parts of the country, there's a lack of availability of wrap. We don't have that issue in New Jersey. We have some mountains of it, and we're going to try and use more of it going forward. Next slide, please. So this was a project that we did. Back in around 2011, 2012, we developed a hot mix asphalt high wrap specification. This specification allowed the industry to put in a minimum of 20% wrap in the surface course, which gives them free rein to put in 100% if they can design the material to meet our performance goals. Same thing with the intermediate and base, minimum of 30, 100% max, as long as they can meet our performance requirements. We had a successful pilot project on 295 down in South Jersey years ago, back in 2012. It was a high wrap mixture, as you can see. It was very successful. It's still in place today. We're planning a preservation project potentially over top of it in the near future, but it can be done if it's done the right way with quality and long-term performance at the forefront of those decisions. Next slide, please. Recycled plastic waste. We've been dabbling in this because there's been, as you know, a global push to do something with the plastic waste. So next slide, Brandy. As you may know, China stopped accepting plastic waste back in 2018, which caused a global panic because they take almost 50% of all global plastic waste they were taking, which equates to about 100 million metric tons annually. Now we have to find some place to put that plastic. We want to reduce landfill of that product because some of it is quality, not all of it. There's a very complex waste stream, as you'll see, but there's challenges. Some of it's not suitable for going back into our pavements, and there's safety and environmental risks. If we're blending it back into asphalt, it may cause very toxic fumes and things like that for our workers. So there's got to be great care in doing this the right way. Next slide, please. So there's ongoing global research right now. In the US, we have the Asphalt Institute, National Asphalt Pavement Association, and NCAT, National Center for Asphalt Technology, looking at this and studying it. And there's a ton of other researchers across the country researching how to incorporate waste plastic back into pavements. But again, as I said, it's a very complex waste stream. There's all different qualities and types of plastics, contamination issues. So there's a lot of knowledge gaps. There's a lot of performance issues. We are doing a study with Rutgers University, evaluating use of recycled plastics in our asphalt mixtures as a modifier. There's a number of products, as you can see on the left, what some of those look like with varying types of plastic in there. We found some suitable and some not suitable. Some actually are detrimental to the performance of the pavement. So again, great care needs to be taken to do this the right way. Next slide, please. So I took this from an article that was posted on the on Asphalt Institute's site. Dr. Mark Buncher, I've had many conversations with him over the years. He's a great guy, great resource for information, but he said, plastic's not the first product that has been researched to add back into asphalt. Wrap asphalt shingles, chrome rubber, many of them, we're doing that. We're recycling them. But again, engineering and science has to lead the way in order to do this the right way. And it should certainly include long-term performance. Next slide, please. So as a summary, we can use these recycled products in pavements, but we have to take our time and do it the right way, research it, engineer it, and let those types of research and findings drive decisions on how we're going to move forward using these recycled products. That way we don't suffer the results of unintended consequences. Research, standards, and governance, absolutely necessary. Quality is a huge issue with a lot of recycled products in the industry. There's varying levels of quality at different plants, so we have to really pay attention to quality, make sure we're getting it. Health, safety, and environmental stewardship, long-term performance, and sustainability. Again, we can't let politics dictate how we do this. We have to let research and engineering dictate how we do it. That way we get roads that perform for our taxpayers. I think that's it for me.
Thank you so much,
Thank you.
Robert. Yeah, and if there's any questions, we can put them in the chat, or feel free to chime in now. Oh, okay, we do have a question. Jivan?
Thank you, Brandy. Thank you, Robert. That was a great presentation. And going back
Thank
even
you.
to Kimberly, that was a great presentation as well. And I mean, seriously, I was not aware of all the great work that we're doing at the department related to sustainability. I do have a question on the health, though. Reason being, there is specifically with the plastics, there's a lot of BPA concerns that we had, and recently we've seen that we've seen plastic bottles come up with a label that's saying this is BPA free, or it's safe. However, the previous bunch of plastic waste probably was not BPA free and probably had health concerns. Now we're using those on our roads. Do you know of any studies that have been conducted to make sure that they are healthy alternatives to be used?
I don't. And that is some of the concerns of the industry, and that is what Mark Buncher kind of pointed out in his article, that there's still a lot of research that needs to be done. Don't get me wrong, we're not using plastics as a standard practice right now in asphalt pavements. However, it is being looked at, and we are having some research done through Rutgers, and we may be doing a pilot project with maintenance. But you're absolutely right. There's a lot that still needs to be researched as far as toxicity, microplastics. We have to think, full circle with this. The process doesn't end when we put it into the pavement. It still has to be milled up and recycled again later on. So there's a lot to think about in this process and consider, and a lot of research still needs to be done. So you make a great point.
Thank you, and thank you very much for all that you've done today. I'm really impressed. I'm proud to be part of NJDOT.
I couldn't have said it better. And I think there's another question in the chat from Jason. He was asking if there are similar concerns with the foam glass. Do you want to elaborate, Jason? You could take yourself off mute and go ahead and ask whatever you want to ask.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I was just curious, when I'm seeing that process for the glass, and it's the first I've heard of that product, so I forgive my ignorance, but I was just curious if you thought there were similar kind of long-term environmental concerns with that product. The glass is obviously pretty safe, but whatever that foam, whatever the chemical process is to create the foam, I would think there could be similar concerns.
I think that one's for you, Kim.
Unfortunately, Kim did leave, but I think Mohab might be here. Maybe Mohab could step in and answer the question.
Sure. So the material is not leaching, so doesn't have that issue at all.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thanks again to Robert. That was really informative. So we're going to move right into our final presentation. And for that, we have Mansi Shah and Kamal Patel, both of the Bureau of Research. And I'm going to turn it right over to Mansi to kick it off.
Thank you, Brandy. Do you have the slideshow?
Yes, can you see it? It's up on the screen.
Yes. Okay. Thank you. Thank you and good afternoon, everyone. I'm excited to be presenting before you some of the sustainable research projects being conducted at the Bureau of Research here at NJDOT. The first project is focused on materials, especially porous concrete, and the second on energy harvesting. Next slide, please. I will dive right into the first project, which is the implementation of pervious concrete in sidewalks in New Jersey. This was a project completed last year by Dr. Hussam Najim at Rutgers Gate, and the principal investigator here at the Bureau of Research was Priscilla Ukpa. I'll first start off with defining what porous concrete is and then talk about the two phases of the project, which were evaluation and then implementation. Next slide, please. So what is porous concrete? Pervious concrete or porous concrete is a permeable material typically made from cement aggregates, water, and admixtures, often built with an underlying stone reservoir that temporarily stores surface runoff before it infiltrates into the subsoil. This has been gaining popularity as a potential solution to reduce the amount of impermeable surfaces associated with sidewalks, reduce puddling, and potentially slowing down stormwater surface runoff. Next slide, please. Phase 1 of this project involved evaluation of various mixes for mechanical properties, workability, and durability. Several sidewalks in Camden County were evaluated using visual inspection and infiltration tests. A survey of stakeholders on implementation of porous concrete was conducted, and several mixes were developed that would give higher strength while maintaining the required void ratio for acceptable infiltration. This was the recommended mix that they came up with. Next slide, please. Traditionally, porous concrete has cement, coarse aggregates, and sand. In this research, smaller amounts of aggregate or sand was added to increase strength while maintaining acceptable void ratios. Next slide. These are some images of the porous concrete lab testing. Next slide. There were freeze-thaw tests conducted to see the performance in different weather conditions. Next slide. Field testing was also conducted. And then I'll now move on to the next phase, which was the implementation. A pilot sidewalk of about 1,200 square feet was constructed on the new Skillman and Burnt Hill Pathway project in Montgomery Township. Next slide, please. The sidewalk was 4 inches thick, constructed on top of a 10-inch storage reservoir. The sidewalk was 200 feet long and 6 feet wide. Over here, you can see that there was a 4-inch porous slab, a 10-inch storage layer, a filter fabric of non-woven geotextile filter fabric below that. Next slide. Here we can see some images of how the preparation for the sidewalk was done. Here is the fabric that is being laid. Next slide. And these are just some images. We can keep going through them, Brandy. And then this was the placement of the expansion joint filter. Concrete was being placed. And then the finishing. And here is a view of a finished section of the sidewalk. Next. And there were also a collection of field samples that was done. And then the sidewalk was monitored and evaluated over time to assess its performance. The monitoring of the built sidewalk included visual inspection for surface texture, clogging, and raveling, periodic infiltration tests to measure variation of infiltration rates over time, and coring of cylindrical cores to measure in situ void ratio and compressive strength in the lab. Next slide, please. Visual inspection showed that air blowers can keep the sidewalk free of debris if done frequently, but vacuuming with suction twice per year was more effective and can keep the porous concrete sidewalk free of debris and minimize clogging. Next slide, please. Here is some pictures of the sidewalk of what it would look like if it was well maintained versus somewhat maintained and then poorly maintained. And here you can see that there was clogging that took place. This is an infiltration test being conducted. And so with vacuuming, if there was minimal, like I mentioned, that air blowing and vacuuming, if done frequently, would keep it pretty well maintained. But in case of, next slide, please. There was pressure washing needed when there was clogging, and water pressure of 2000 psi is sufficient to remove minor or moderate clogging. And then 3000 to 3000 psi is sufficient to remove severe clogging. Yep. And then this is the picture of the sidewalk after it has been pressure washed at 3000 psi, and you can see that it's almost back to its condition that it was originally. And this it also did pretty well after snow, and it's kind of maintained its quality. Next. The next sustainable material that is being researched is rubber concrete. And thank you, Robert, for your presentation before this. We weren't aware of all the stuff that you've already been doing, but this is an area, next slide, please. This is an area where where the Bureau of Research wants to conduct further research studies as well, as we know that waste tire disposal represents a growing environmental problem, and more than 500 million units of waste tires are discarded every year without any treatment. Next. This has raised concerns worldwide, and it poses a threat to the environment as well as human health. The possibility of recycling scrap tires as aggregates in concrete and asphalt has gained acceptance worldwide, and the Bureau of Research is currently looking into this material for possible use on roadway applications. Thank you, Robert, for your detailed presentation of how asphalt rubber binder has been used. Next. We would be happy to collaborate on research projects in the further if you have any specific research needs in this area. And that's it from me. I would like to invite my colleague Kamal Patel to talk about energy harvesting now.
Hello, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Kamal Patel, and I'm going to be presenting on energy harvesting from roadway and bridges. The PI for this project was Hao Wang, and the project manager for this project was Giri Venkatila. And next slide, please. So there is a growing congestion in transportation, and along with that, there is also deterioration of infrastructure. These are some of the challenges that the DOTs face, like along with like monitoring of those deteriorating infrastructure. There's also a challenge in like significant amount of electricity being produced from fossil fuels, which are increasing the greenhouse gas emissions. All of these challenges can be addressed with using our current transportation infrastructure to generate electricity. Next slide, please. The research motivation for this project is the research was conducted into two phases. The first phase looked into the photovoltaic material, and the second phase looked into piezoelectric materials. In the first phase, the photovoltaic materials or solar panels were mounted on noise barriers. This would help us reduce both help generate electricity, reduce greenhouse gas emissions, and also noise at the same time. So next slide, please. So this has a wide range of applications which will enable us to like increase our infrastructure to be more sustainable and smart. And some of the applications for this would be to use it in remote off-region areas where there is no electric grid and where electricity would need to be transported. And this would be a great place to put in this technology. And also the electricity that is generated could also be used to power sensors and other lightings and also wireless data transfer devices along with the noise barriers to monitor our traffic data and also to monitor our current infrastructure. Next slide, please. So photovoltaic materials are basically devices that like when It absorbs light, it produces electricity, and they have many different applications in transportation industry, and we could be using it to put it on tunnels. We could be using it on our sidewalks and also noise barriers, and there are many more different alternatives for solar panels in transportation. Next slide, please. So for this project, we plan to retrofit it. We had a design configuration of like retrofitting uh, solar panels on noise barriers at three different configuration. First was top mounted, then there was a multifacial, bifacial, and also there was shingles. And next slide, please. And from what we found after analysis is that the maximum power output we got was when we used 3 shingles to 4 shingles, because during that configuration, the solar panel does not need to be oriented enough so that we constantly get the maximum power output. So that's why top mounted was not used, because if you look at the graphs, you could see that there is only a few points that have a low and a high. And what we want is constant in 3 shingles and 4 shingles, there is like a constant tip point that you could see that basically is producing a power output. Next slide, please. So there is 106 miles of noise barriers in New Jersey with like average height of like 17 feet. And so after the research team did some calculation and they figured out that with the built on, we could be getting energy output from a higher amount of energy output for this just in New Jersey by using those 106 miles of like noise barriers if we put solar panels along it. The research team also gave us methodologies to like select like certain noise barriers that for like site selection, so that some of the things that they considered was economic factors, environmental factors, and also social factors. Next slide, please. In order to, in conclusion, what the research team found was that when using photovoltaic materials, we need to use a shingle-based configuration when we are retrofitting the solar panels to get the maximum power output. Next slide, please. There is also piezoelectric materials which are used, which are really new. And these materials, when stress is applied on it, it creates energy. And some common types are zircarbonate titanium and polyvinyl fluoride. Next slide, please. So these materials can be embedded into an infrastructure. An example for this would be into the pavements. And so as a moving load of like compressive force goes along it, it would generate electricity. And also there is vibration based where it could be attached on a bridge infrastructure, and as the bridge vibrates with different types of load moving along it, it will generate electricity. Next slide, please. And the research objective and scope of this project was to basically take this material and take it from laboratory testing to numerical simulation and to a full-scale test. Next slide, please. During the laboratory testing, the research team determined that there was a correlation between the resonant frequency, so that when the material was vibrating, it would create this voltage output, and it was just to determine this relationship of like at what frequency we would get the maximum voltage output. Next slide, please. There was a finite element model that also developed to understand the relationship between those frequencies and the mass combinations. And this model was used to on, for example, on an entire bridge section, which would be covered with this material, which would be attached to this material. And there was also a laboratory test done at, next slide, please. Laboratory test done at Beast at Rutgers to where there was a moving load of traffic of like 6 to 12 miles was done, which vibrated the material, and it allowed us to get a better understanding of like what kind of frequency would give us a better voltage output through like different load simulations. And thank you everyone for your time. And these are just some of the few research projects that the Bureau of Research is currently working on at different project life cycles. And there are more research projects that are to come in the future. And thank you for your time, and I appreciate it. And I'll hand it to Brandy.
Thank you so much, Kamal and Mansi. Wow, that was the first time we had, I think, a feature presentation from the Bureau of Research. So thank you for being the first. You know, and we're looking forward to having more information from the Bureau of Research at these STIC meetings. So thank you both so much. I know that was a lot and you ran through it quickly and you got through it. So we appreciate that. All right, so now we're going to have just a few announcements and reminders before we adjourn today. So first up, I'm going to hand it over to Sal to talk about the May 31st grand opening of DOT's Board and Town Training Center for Excellence.
Thanks, Brandy. Mike was there, Parthoza, Assistant Commissioner CPM, Andrew Tenard, senior leadership was there. You can go to the next slide. So back in 2020, TOS&S had a vision talking about its workforce. You can keep moving through these, Brandy. Workforce that's right-sized, properly trained, and properly equipped. So the question is, how do you have a workforce that's properly trained? Well, you establish a first-class training facility that meets the needs of the entire department, but also that you create a business unit that's dedicated to training that technical workforce. So what we created was the Board and Town Training Facility. The pictures that you see, go back. The pictures that you see here are a mix of in-room training, field training, the facilities themselves, mechanics bays, computer classrooms, lecture halls, various kinds of classroom sizes and equipment throughout the 3 buildings on the property. Next slide. So it was formerly a National Guard equipment facility. We bought the property from Military and Veterans Affairs back in 2016. That's the layout. It shows the buildings. The first building, about 18,000 square feet. It's got offices, classrooms, conference rooms, everything like that. That's sort of the building when you come onto the property. Next slide. I've got my own little marquee mark there, so you can click them twice. It'll bring it to it. Building 2. Click it again, about 11,000 square feet. This has got, again, a lot of the training bays. Mike, if you remember, these were the doors that were open along the side of the first building with a lot of the maintenance training bays and the vehicle bays. Next deck. Third building off to the back. Again, manager's office, vehicle maintenance garage bays. So, I mean, the bigger eye-catching one, if you click it again, brings you to the training field. The training field is unique in New Jersey, fully functioning roadway equipment. Everything from traffic signals to street lighting, crossing equipment, camera systems. We have 2 of our cameras there. We have 2 of our DMS there, drainage structures, as well as a portion of a CDL training and testing area on property. This is where we do our CDL training for the department. Next deck. Couple of pictures of the field itself. You know, you're walking there, you literally, for those of you that ever worked on a highway, you're standing there, you literally think to yourself, I'm going to turn around because I'm standing on a roadway. You're in a closed space. It's unique to stand on, Mike, isn't it? Like you're standing there and you're like, I'm standing on a road. This doesn't feel right, but it is. Next slide. So Debbie Hatcher-Savis and the team in support services, as well as Jack Longworth in operations administrative support, the training unit. We'll talk a minute about the training unit themselves. Next slide. The building was brought to life, what cost about $21 million. the entire exteriors of the building, the roof, doors, windows, everything like that were repaired or replaced. And the interior, as you saw in those pictures, was completely renovated. They had to do full utility upgrades for gas, electric, and water. They had to do significant stormwater and drainage updates. The same property is the State Police's Bordentown station. It's right on 295, right where Bordentown and 130 are. So we kind of share the same space footprint. So we had to redo the sanitary and sewer pump station for both buildings. Next step. So Operations Training Unit, basically they want to create a culture throughout the person's career to basically create a more professional, knowledgeable, and proud workforce. The people that can teach it are the ones who do. The people who know it are the ones that are educating the future of the department. So those are the 20 staff that work in the Operations Training Unit. Next slide. This is a course listing. A lot of it is geared towards operations, you'll notice, but we do have other staff that go through there. You have our volunteers for our winter program. We have CDL courses that are available to other agencies. We have people doing electrical work there, sign shop, new hire engineers, field training, markouts. Our ITS staff is going to be working there from a technical and training perspective. And we also have equipment at TCNJ that we're going to be bringing down to Bordentown as part of our test environment. Next slide. And it's not just for TOS&S. This is a very important part. This is a facility that's available to the entire department. For those of you who are state government employees, you may have remembered last week, we all had to suffer through the Canadian wildfire particulate air. I have 70 personnel who work in Safety Service Patrol. Their job is being out on the highway. We brought them indoors the next day because we said we needed a place for them out of the environment. We brought them there and we gave them all traffic incident management training and refresher training into that upper right-hand lecture hall. So we were able to continue our mission of educating our workforce, even though we weren't capable or we really didn't want to send our people out to that particulate matter. But it is available to the entire department. Quote from the commissioner, it's critical to have a well-trained, highly skilled workforce to maintain, build, and improve our infrastructure. This facility is really geared towards investing in our employees. And as you've all heard her say many times, our employees are our most valuable asset. And final slide is a fun one. That's the official opening. That's the ribbon cutting. And if you look all the way to the left, you'll see Assistant Commissioner Russo. Any questions? Please let us know. More than happy to bring anybody over for a tour. We've started holding meetings there. We've started doing training, like I mentioned, with SSP. We'll have our second half of the year traffic incident management stakeholder meeting down there. So this is definitely a facility in use. Melissa Boyer oversees the property under Jack, and Debbie Hatch-Savas from Support Services manages the building, just like every other building in the department. So thank you for the opportunity, Mike.
Thank you so much, Sal. And I guess I'll mention that I have been working with Melissa to try to get our September STIC meeting there. So, I would welcome everyone to actually have an in-person, and we're going to try to set up a tour of the facility. So, details to be worked out, and I'll send that to the STIC network as soon as I have all that finalized. But looking forward to seeing it, and thanks for giving us all that information about it. It's really exciting. And Mike, did you want to add anything? Because you were at the ribbon cutting too.
That facility is truly impressive, Sal. Thanks for that virtual tour. But yeah, our goal is to have our next in-person STIC meeting at the Bordentown facility. Andrew has offered to make arrangements for tours. It's truly impressive. And as Sal said, it's not just for operations and maintenance. We've been having conversations with them as far as also establishing that as our UAS training facility. We have a drone program. We conduct training courses, and this would be a perfect location. For those of you not familiar with this, it's literally at the crossroads of the New Jersey Turnpike, 295, 206, Route 130. And accessibility to this site is phenomenal. It's easily accessible from all parts of the state. So we're looking forward to that, Sal. It was a great day out there. It really is impressive, the size of that facility and how much is out there, not just on the training field, but all of the state-of-the-art equipment you have in there. You've got, virtual or automated CDL training facilities. It's truly impressive. Something we'd like to share with everybody else on the STIC Council. It's almost like this was like an afternoon in excellence. I'm sitting here listening to all the presentations, and I think Jeevan made the comment that, didn't really realize how much we have going on here as an agency. And that's the beautiful thing about what Brandy and Amanda have turned the STIC Council into, is the forum it provides for the transfer of information, the sharing of knowledge. Those presentations this afternoon were phenomenal. I knew we had some of that going on, right, from a research perspective and a sustainability perspective, but never really realized the depth of what we're doing here. So everybody, thank you for that. This was an impressive afternoon. Thank you.
So we're not quite done yet, but we are going to just run through a couple other announcements and reminders, and then, I'll turn it over to you, Mike, for closing comments, although that was really nice. Thank you.
I thought I just did that.
I know. Sorry, everyone. We're almost done. Just buckle in for just a second. So next, this year was the 10th anniversary of the Design Summit. You heard Chris Page talk about it earlier, so I'm just going to quickly run through. It's an annual event. It's sponsored by NJDOT, Federal Highway New Jersey, and ACEC New Jersey. It brings together various areas of the transportation design industry in New Jersey. And with an average attendance of about 330 people, including federal and state government, design consultants, MPOs, local officials, and engineers, the event provides a forum for the discussion of emerging topics related to transportation design and how to move the industry forward. I'm bringing this up because this year the theme was innovation, and the sessions were related to electronic and connected vehicles, innovations in project delivery and materials, and we had an interactive discussion about barriers to innovation. All of these presentations highlighted Everyday Counts initiatives and where the State Transportation Innovation Council plays a role. So overall, it was a hugely successful 10-year celebration. And with the recent rollout of EDC 7, we wanted to remind everyone that there are free trainings available through our local technical assistance program. And here's a list of upcoming trainings that are related to the Everyday Counts program with dates and locations. And additional opportunities will be added in the fall. You can view details or get more information at the website here, and maybe David or Janet could pop that. There you go. Thank you, Janet. So that link is in the chat if you want to sign up for any of these or get more information on any of these. And again, additional courses will be added. Next up, NJDOT's Bureau of Research has decided to combine the Innovative Ideas Portal with the Research Portal into one site called the New Jersey Transportation Ideas Portal. The site is open to the public, and once users register for an account, they could submit new ideas, browse existing, or comment or upvote on any of the ideas that are in there. We plan on advertising this widely in hopes of generating more and high quality research and innovation ideas. So feel free to share this link with your networks and promote the submission of new ideas. You can also access this portal through our tech transfer website. And speaking of which, this is where we host the STIC webpage, where you can find all of our STIC business, articles, meeting recordings, meeting summaries, and more. I saw someone had a question about the slides and sharing the slides and seeing the meeting recording. All of that is available here on our STIC website. And lastly, we still have STIC incentive funding on the table. We need your help in identifying projects to utilize the funding. The funds can be used to advance projects or initiatives in support of the Everyday Counts program. So we get $100,000 a year, and the link here has all the information you need to get started. But if you have any questions about the program or have ideas for a project, please feel free to contact me anytime. And that's it for me. So I'll turn it again over to Mike for final comments. Thank everybody.
I think I already used up all of my material. Everybody, thank you. Once again, guys, you raised the bar every time. This was a truly impressive meeting. I want to thank everybody for being here. And as I said earlier, hopefully we get to see everybody in person next time around at DOT's new training facility. All the presenters today, it was truly a fantastic amount of information that was presented. So I want to thank you all for that. I really appreciate the amount of effort that you all put into these meetings. You all who contribute to these meetings is what makes this STIC Council the success that it is. So thank you.
Okay, thanks everyone. And Amanda, did you want to say anything?
I just wanted to say great job, Brandy, in pulling all of this together. This was a jam-packed agenda, so great job. And a special shout out and thank you to my other staff, Mansi Shah and Kamal Patel for stepping in and representing the Bureau of Research and highlighting the great work that we do, and getting the word out that we're ready and we're willing to work on research for anyone who has a need. So please reach out to any one of us, and we're there to serve you. So that's all I wanted to say. Thank you, everybody.
Okay, thanks everyone.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
Have a good day.
Bye.
Bye.